So when we come to the spiritual path and we start to practice in a deliberate way, a dedicated way, we start to connect with a lot of power. We start to feel energy come through us. And interesting things might start to happen. We might start to notice how bright and beautiful the world is as we practice mindfulness. And we might start to notice that we have more control over our will. That when we want to, when we have a goal, we're better able to hone our attention and actually make that happen. And it can be very exciting when we discover that, and a lot of fun. But it's also a trap. It's a trap. And some people actually start to study meditation and mindfulness for the sole purpose of developing occult power. They look into all the different yogic practices and say, oh, okay, I want to be powerful. I want to make things happen. And there's a certain feeling that we have when we're able to direct raw power through our being. And it can be very exhilarating. But again, it's a trap. But people still get lost in it. People will chase that desire to control, that ability to use their will to influence opportunities and have certain experiences. And it's quite possible to do that in order to build a very certain type of life. And we all do it. We're all doing it all the time. Just some people are more conscious of it than others. Because, as my teacher said, whatever you focus on, you become. That's the teaching, just like there. So you have a body, you're going to focus on body things. You have relative consciousness, so you're going to focus on things in the relative world. We can't help it. That's just how we're built. Now, part of our spiritual practice is becoming aware of this is how our mind works. This is how we interact with the relational world. Is when we focus on something, it gets bigger. It gets bigger in our attention. We feed it energy. It gets bigger in the relative world. Its importance in our life expands. It takes up more of our attention. So it might grow into this giant mountain, whereas the rest of our life gets really, really small, whatever it is. And we start to play. And it's a good game to play. There's nothing wrong with it. But right and wrong are relative concepts that we can get lost in, right? We can become very righteous and say, no, we should only do this. And wars are fought over that, and it's ridiculous. And that has nothing to do with spiritual growth. That is being trapped in that pitfall of power. So what happens is sometimes we become aware of this occult power and we become afraid, and so we run the other way. And I say, okay, I'm just going to surrender everything, and I'm not going to take any responsibility for anything. I'm just going to let whatever happens happen. And you become very floaty and flighty, and life becomes typically very painful, because even though you say you're surrendering, all you're doing is giving up responsibility. So we need to find balance We need to balance our relationship with occult power. And we need to find the balance point between building the type of life that we want without falling into the trap of thinking that we can control everything. Shankara talks about Ishvara. Ishvara is the name for the being or the energy that is in charge of everything, of controlling everything. Keeps track of all the little connections and moves all the pieces into the right place so the patterns of creation can play out. So he calls this force Ishvara. And what happens when we start to become aware of our own power is that's the temptation, is we want to be Ishvara. It's like, yeah, I'll be happy because I'll be in control of everything. But spend some time really contemplating what that would mean. How exhausting that would be to have to manage the movement of every little fly, like we have a little fly in here, every leaf on every tree, every person, every mood, every cloud, everything, every little sprout of grass growing. It would be an awesome responsibility. And to think that it could be bent to your egotistical will is ridiculous, because the human mind cannot conceive of the all of infinity. We're beyond conception what we actually are. So instead, if we're going to follow the spiritual path, we focus on that, on truth, on expanding our awareness to the point where we come to fully know and appreciate that samsara is nirvana, that Atman is Brahman, that there is no separation between our finite being and infinity. What this means in a practical sense is that these games of power that we play, as we start to experiment with our will, we don't just abdicate that responsibility and say, oh, I'm a spiritual person. I don't do that. So yes, you do. We all do. It's part of being human. We exert our will every moment with every breath. But when we're committed to the spiritual path, that search for truth, that reaching to expand our awareness, that it goes on forever, by the way, is the number one thing. And everything else that we do in life is in service to that. So how we make our bed in the morning, what clothes we wear, what job we work at, who we spend time with, how we exert our will upon this world, is no longer about our attachments. It's no longer about, well, I want this because I want this. It becomes, this desire is here. How can this desire that has arisen be turned in service of truth? So it doesn't mean that we're not going to have desire anymore. Of course you're going to have desire. Desires come up all the time. They come up and then they fall away, and they come up and they fall away. But it's looking at this desire for a certain type of life and looking at it in a very deep way and saying, well, is this out of fear that this desire is coming? Is it because I'm trying to control something, trying to hold a certain shape and brace myself against the infinity of being? Or is this desire out of love, out of exploration, out of wondering, ooh, could I do that? Am I capable? What kind of person would I have to change into to accomplish that? See, that's a very different use of occult power. One is very constrictive, very selfish, because we're just trying to hold the current version of the self in a fixed way. And it won't work. I'll just tell you up front. You can pull it off for a little while. You know, there are people that can do it for maybe even a whole lifetime. They can have enough power to push their vision, their dream out into the world and manipulate themselves and those around them into playing out these roles. And we see it happening in the world. But it always comes with suffering, because it's cutting ourselves off from infinity, from the pure awareness of light. See, I have an agreement from the crow. If, on the other hand, we look at the life that we want, like I said, there's nothing wrong with desires. You know, if you want a Ferrari, you know, go do what it takes to have a Ferrari. That might be fun. But don't do it just to have the Ferrari. Do it to see how you can play with consciousness and awareness and will to see what type of person you have to become in order to get that Ferrari or whatever it is for you. And see if you can do it out of love for awareness. Because that will change how you go about doing it. If it's all just about you and your wants, what tends to happen is we step on other people. We push everything out of the way. We become abusive to our own bodies. We become abusive to other people. In other words, we cause ourselves and others to suffer. But if we're doing it out of a sense of curiosity and play, then all of a sudden it's not so much about getting the Ferrari or getting whatever it is. It becomes about dancing with the light. It becomes about, oh, who do I have to become to have this certain experience? What does it feel like to shift and change into that? What do I have to give up? And that's where our attachments come up and say, oh no, you have to be this type of person. You can't let go of that. You have to confront your attitudes. Oh, only jerks have Ferraris. Only, stuck-up rich people have that. And you have to look at those attitudes and realize, oh, those are attachments too. Because there's nothing inherently wrong with chasing a desire when it's done out of love. when it's done out of service to awareness itself. Because every time you make one of these leaps into a different way of being, every time we exert our will and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to get a black belt, and maybe you haven't exercised in 10 years. It's going to take a lot of personal will to develop that discipline. You need to make sure that your body could actually handle that. Maybe you're like, oh, I want a black belt in Shotokan. But if you're not built for that, you're probably not going to succeed. So then it might mean facing your attachments over that particular goal and saying, okay, what can I do that's going to fulfill that desire, but it's still going to be in service of light? That's not going to turn it into an abusive situation. Like, you might wake up and say, oh, I want to be a brain surgeon next year. But that's, unless you've already been studying medicine for a long time, already been studying surgery, that's unlikely to happen, you know. So carefully examine these desires that rise up. Don't just stuff them away. That's not spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is being aware. So it's actually embracing these different desires that come up and say, where is this coming from? And we can break it down very binary. Is it fear or is it love? Is this something I'm really excited and curious and just want to explore, and if it works out, that's great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Or is it out of fear of like, oh, I have to have this or it's the end of the world and I'll just be completely devastated? That might be a cue that it's fear-based. Sometimes we have very small desires, and sometimes we have very big desires. And one is not better than the other. It's just that same quality of honesty and humility, of honestly looking at it, and then humility is our ability to accurately evaluate what we have to work with. So in the case of, I want to do brain surgery next year, if you're humble, you would look at what your skill set currently is, look at what the qualifications are, and then make an honest adjustment of what needs to be done. And we do that no matter what the goal is. This practice of honest humility is what makes spiritual growth possible. If we kind of skip over that quality, then spiritual growth just stops. That's when we get very out of balance with our occult power. That's when we become much more susceptible to being trapped by our desires and our push to achieve them. So we're going to do things. We can't help it. We have these bodies, they're going to move, we're going to breathe, we're going to eat, we're going to focus on things. So as part of your practice, part of your mindfulness practice, now that you've had some time to gain control a little bit over your mind, we play the game of beauty and gratitude to start with, and we start over every day. Like, first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, check in, see where your mind is. If you spent some time in the dream plane, maybe you went some weird places. Maybe you wake up and you're feeling a little off. So we stop before we even get out of bed. And we check in, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? If the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, you're like, ugh, yuck, I don't feel good. Which happens to me a lot. I have issues. Instead of allowing that to consume your entire attention, you stop for a minute and focus on beauty or gratitude. And say, oh, I'm so thankful that I woke up today. So thankful I'm breathing. Thankful for this bed that I have. I'm thankful for the air that I'm breathing. And then that little shift into gratitude changes the entire day. It allows us to be more present. And then we can watch what desires arise and take our mindfulness into examining those. And this applies to everything that we do. From how we spend our time all day, to what jobs we do, to what we do in our free time. It's all part of the path. I don't know about you, but I know I was very much raised in this go to church on Sunday kind of world, and then the rest of the time there's no spiritual practice. It's just, hope. My parents are very good, and they taught us, be a good person. Be good, be kind. But there was no real practice during the week. And then, you go on Sunday and you sit and listen to some guy talk. Say interesting stories sometimes. Other times they'd be contradictory. But Trikaya Buddhism is not like that. It's not just you come here and sit with a teacher once a week and then you forget all about your practice. This is every day, every minute. We devote our time to practice. There's nothing excluded. So even the littlest passing thought that we have, we look at it, we pay attention. It's like, oh, interesting. Where did that come from? And when we do this, we start to become familiar with the patterns that are going through our mind. We start to become familiar with, by watching those patterns, we start to learn that, oh, this is something that's arising from within me, as opposed to, oh, that's something I'm feeling from my neighbor or from somebody walking by the street, which is a whole nother discussion that I won't go into too much detail on. But this practice of paying attention, it's ongoing. It's not something that, okay, I paid attention today, I'm all done. We do it throughout the day. We sit and we meditate, and that's where we really focus on that one point. And then the rest of the time, as we're practicing mindfulness, that seated meditation is what melts a lot of the structures that blinds us to much of our awareness. So, does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, did I answer your question? So we're going to meditate some more, and I want to bring it back to the chakra meditation. And if you're just starting off, you can just focus on the chakras. That's enough. Just feel the navel center. Then we'll move up to the heart center. Just feel that part of your being. And then feel the third eye. Now, if you've been practicing for a little while, we can make it a little more complex. I know before I told you about bringing in different qualities, like the navel center would bring in the quality of the desert. So you can picture the desert just very lightly. So we're not trying to astral travel ourselves there. We're just pulling in that quality of resilience, that intense power, by picturing the desert. And then this time we can also add in a mantra. So the mantra of the navel center is Ram, R-A-M. So you can do it silently, just Ram, 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 Ram. And just allow the sound and the visualization and the general awareness of that chakra to allow that specific dimension of light to open in your being, and we merge into that. And then we'll focus on the heart, and we'll bring the attention up. And that visualization is the ocean, the all-embracing. Just everything just floods in. There's no holding back. There's no resistance. And that mantra is Ah. Just Ah. 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 It's just that sense of just opening. Everything floods in. It's that beautiful ocean. And then we move the attention up to the third eye, between the eyebrows, a little bit above. And that's just that endless field of golden white light. Just completely undifferentiated awareness, where anything and everything is possible. And that mantra is Om. And we focus there on the visualization, on that general area, and on the mantra. Om. 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 And we just allow the energy to all coalesce there and open us into those infinite dimensions of light. So we'll practice now. And if you're watching this later, take a few minutes to really just pause and